For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On a frigid winter morning, Eli and Rosa Sandoval, with their 9-year-old son Mateo, set out for a snowshoeing trip on Mount Hood's White River Canyon side. They never returned. A sudden whiteout engulfed the slopes. Their GPS failed, and despite an extensive search operation, the Sandoval family vanished without a trace into the mountain's unforgiving wilderness. For 7 agonizing years, their loved ones lived with torturous uncertainty, clinging to fragments of hope. Then, 7 years later, high on a remote gully, Avalanche technicians stumbled upon a chilling discovery. 3 backpacks, neatly stacked. This is the complete investigation into what happened to the Sandoval family on Mount Hood. Before we continue, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy this content, consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Now let's continue. Mount Hood stands as a majestic sentinel over the Oregon landscape, its snow-capped peaks a magnet for adventurers and a formidable challenge for the unprepared. Its beauty, however, belies an inherent, often deadly, danger. This towering stratovolcano, an iconic landmark, has claimed many lives over the centuries, its volatile weather patterns and treacherous terrain unforgiving to those who underestimate its power. It was within this grand, yet perilous, environment that the Sandoval family embarked on what they anticipated would be a routine weekend excursion. Rosa and Eli Sandoval, along with their 9-year-old son Mateo, were seasoned weekend snowshoers. They approached their outdoor pursuits with a blend of enthusiasm and methodical preparation, typically equipped for varying conditions. Their chosen destination for this particular trip was the White River Canyon side gullies, an area known for its pristine beauty and challenging, yet accessible, trails. The morning of their outing began with clear skies, promising a perfect day for exploring the winter wonderland. They navigated the snow-covered landscape, the crunch of their snowshoes the primary sound against the vast silence of the mountain. However, the mountain's temperament can shift with startling rapidity. As the afternoon progressed, an unforeseen and severe whiteout descended upon the canyon. Visibility plummeted to mere feet, transforming the familiar landscape into a disorienting, featureless void. In the swirling snow and blinding fog, their primary navigation tool, a handheld GPS device, suddenly failed. They found themselves near a treacherous corniced ridge, disoriented and acutely aware of their peril. The mountain had abruptly seized control of their fate. As evening fell, and the Sandovals failed to return from their expected trip, a quiet concern began to ripple through their close-knit community. This concern quickly escalated into profound alarm. The family, meticulous in their planning and communication, had simply vanished into the unforgiving embrace of Mount Hood, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a growing dread. The alarm, once a quiet ripple of concern, quickly transformed into a full-scale emergency as the Sandoval family remained unaccounted for. Within hours of their reported disappearance, a massive search and rescue operation was mobilized. Experienced teams from across the region converged on Mount Hood, their rapid deployment a testament to the urgency of the situation and the known dangers of the mountain. Leading this complex and rapidly escalating effort was Dana Kroll, a seasoned SAR lead with years of experience navigating the unforgiving terrain of the Pacific Northwest. Her calm demeanor belied the immense pressure of coordinating dozens of personnel, specialized equipment, and canine units across a vast and increasingly hostile environment. The conditions that had claimed the Sandovals did not relent. The severe whiteout persisted, evolving into a relentless winter storm that brought even deeper snow, gale-force winds, and dangerously low temperatures. Visibility remained critically poor, grounding air support and forcing ground crews to contend with treacherous, waist-deep drifts. The White River Canyon side gullies, already a challenging landscape, became an almost impassable maze of concealed crevasses, unstable cornices, and the constant threat of avalanche. Rescuers, despite their training and specialized gear, moved slowly, painstakingly, their efforts hampered by the sheer scale of the mountain and the relentless assault of the weather. The sea. Arch expanded exponentially, encompassing every accessible gully, ridge, and potential shelter within a widening perimeter. Dog teams scoured the snow, snowmobiles attempted to cover ground where possible, and experienced mountaineers probed dangerous slopes. Yet as days bled into a full week, the exhaustive efforts yielded no tangible clues. No tracks, no discarded gear, no sign of the Sanduvals. The initial surge of desperate hope began to wane, replaced by a growing sense of dread. Ikeka Nuns, a veteran avalanche forecaster intimately familiar with Mount Hood's volatile temperament, provided critical insights into the conditions. He described the extreme instability of the snowpack, the result of rapid accumulation and significant cross-loading events, where wind shifts snow from one side of a ridge to another, building dangerous cornices and slabs. Simultaneously, ODOT plow driver Big Walt, who had been battling the elements on the mountain's access roads, recounted the unprecedented snowfall and the near-impassable conditions that had gripped the area. Their combined perspectives painted a grim picture of a mountain at its most formidable, a force that could easily overwhelm even the most prepared. Each passing hour without a trace intensified the agonizing realization that the Sanduvals had simply vanished, swallowed whole by the unforgiving winter landscape. After nearly 2 weeks of relentless, yet fruitless, searching, the agonizing decision was made to scale back the active search for the Sandoval family. Resources were stretched thin, and the continued harsh weather conditions made further large-scale operations untenable and increasingly dangerous for the rescue personnel themselves. Dana Kroll, the SAR lead, had to deliver the grim news, a weight she had carried too many times before. The initial, frantic mobilization gave way to a somber demobilization, leaving behind a stark void where hope had once flickered. The lack of any definitive clues was perhaps the most perplexing aspect of the disappearance. Despite the extensive search, which had covered hundreds of square miles of treacherous terrain, there was no sign of Rosa, Eli, or Mateo. No discarded snowshoe, no stray piece of clothing, no emergency signal. It was as if the mountain had swallowed them whole, leaving not a single trace. This absence of evidence compounded the mystery, preventing any concrete theories from taking hold and leaving investigators with only speculation. Mount Hood, with its vast wilderness and unpredictable temperament, had once again asserted its formidable power, claiming another secret, another family, into its silent, snow-covered embrace. For the Sandoval family's relatives and friends, the lack of closure was a torment. The absence of a body meant the absence of a definitive end, leaving them in a perpetual state of limbo between hope and despair. Grief lingered, a heavy shroud woven with unanswered questions and the agonizing inability to mourn a loss that remained unconfirmed. The community, once united in a desperate search, was left to grapple with the profound sorrow of an unresolved tragedy. Days turned into weeks, then months, and eventually years. The file on the Sandoval family's disappearance grew thicker, but no new information emerged to break the cold silence. The active investigation transitioned into a cold case, filed away in the archives of search and rescue operations, a stark reminder of the mountain's enduring mysteries. 7 years passed, each winter bringing fresh snow to Mount Hood, silently burying the landscape, and it seemed, the last lingering hopes of ever understanding what truly happened to Rosa, Eli, and young Mateo Sandoval. The mountain held its secrets close, its snow-capped peaks indifferent to the human longing for answers. 7 years had passed since the Sandoval family vanished into the unforgiving embrace of Mount Hood, their disappearance a cold mystery filed away in the annals of the mountain's many unsolved tragedies. The initial despair had long settled into a quiet, enduring grief for those who knew them. Yet, the mountain, in its slow, deliberate way, was about to relinquish a secret it had held for half a decade and 2 years. In the late spring, as the vast snowpack began its gradual retreat, revealing terrain hidden for months, a specialized team of Avalanche technicians was conducting routine assessment work in a remote, high-altitude section of Mount Ho. Their mission was to analyze snow stability and potential hazards for the coming climbing season, a methodical task in a landscape that still held a profound wildness. They were operating in an area not typically frequented by recreational snowshoers, a series of wind-scooped gullies near the White River Canyon, where the terrain was particularly prone to heavy snow accumulation and wind loading. It was during this meticulous survey that one technician, probing a deep snowdrift near a shallow, naturally formed cave, encountered an unexpected resistance. Clearing away the packed snow, the team made a discovery that sent a jolt through the quiet mountain air. At the mouth of a modest wind-scooped cave, sheltered from the prevailing winds, lay 3 backpacks. They were not scattered or haphazardly discarded. Instead, they were meticulously stacked one atop the other, forming a small, deliberate cairn against the snow-carved rock. The sight was extraordinary. For 7 years, the mountain had offered no trace, no hint of the Sandoval's fate. Now, these 3 packs, clearly weathered but remarkably preserved, had emerged from their icy tomb, arranged with an undeniable sense of purpose. The discovery was immediately recognized for its profound significance. It was an unmistakable signal, a deliberate act of communication from a family long presumed lost without a trace. The news rippled through the search and rescue community with electrifying speed, instantly reopening a case that had long been considered unsolvable. A long-dormant hope, previously extinguished by years of silence, was suddenly and dramatically reignited, demanding a new, urgent investigation into the mountain's deepest secrets. The discovery of the stacked backpacks instantly transformed the remote wind-scooped cave into a critical investigation site. A specialized team, including forensic personnel, was dispatched with utmost urgency. The area was meticulously cordoned off, treated not merely as a recovery zone, but as a complex scene demanding the same rigor applied to any criminal investigation. Every inch of the snow-carved landscape surrounding the cave mouth was documented, photographed, and scanned before any physical evidence was disturbed. The challenge lay in meticulously preserving a site that had been hidden and shaped by 7 years of Mount Hood's relentless weather, carefully distinguishing between natural forces and human intervention. SAR Lead Dana Kroll, who had commanded the initial, exhaustive search, was recalled to the case. 7 years had passed since she had made the agonizing decision to scale back operations, and the cold file had weighed on her conscience. Now, with a tangible lead, her determination was palpable, though tempered by the gravity of what the discovery implied. She oversaw the careful removal and transport of the 3 backpacks, each item handled with a reverence born of profound significance. Back at the command post, the detailed analysis of the evidence began. Each pack was carefully opened, its contents cataloged and examined for any clues. Despite years of exposure, the items inside, some personal effects, emergency gear, and remnants of food, were remarkably preserved by the frigid conditions. Through identifying marks and specific gear configurations, investigators definitively confirmed the packs belonged to Rosa, Eli, and young Matteo Sandoval. This confirmation, while providing a long-sought answer to ownership, only deepened the mystery of their final moments. Investigators began to reconstruct the events that might have transpired at the wind-scooped cave. The immediate surroundings were scrutinized for any additional signs, potential makeshift shelters, discarded tools, or any disturbances in the snowpack that might indicate a struggle or an attempt to dig in. The prevailing question shifted dramatically. It was no longer simply, "Where are they?" but what were they doing and why did they leave these packs in such a deliberate manner? The very act of stacking the packs like cairns, a universally recognized symbol of human presence and direction, suggested a conscious, methodical effort. It spoke of intent, a final message left behind in the heart of the unforgiving mountain. The meticulous examination of the Sandoval family's backpacks yielded a critical detail that illuminated their final, desperate struggle. Tucked deep within Eli Sandoval's pack, carefully secured between layers of emerge NCY clothing, investigators discovered a single chemical light stick. This was not merely a forgotten item. Its placement revealed a profound and tragic intent. The light stick had been purposefully wedged, its activating mechanism broken and its contents glowing faintly, positioned to reflect its luminescence outwards. Its orientation, when painstakingly recreated at the site, pointed directly toward the distant highway, a faint beacon in the overwhelming wilderness. This was a methodical, deliberate act of signaling, a final, poignant attempt to draw attention to their dire predicament. The discovery confirmed the Windscoop Cave had served as more than just a temporary resting place. It was their chosen site for an overnight shelter, a desperate sanctuary against the brutal elements. The stacked backpacks, now understood as a visible cairn, and the hidden light stick, intended as a signal, spoke volumes about their organized and resilient efforts to survive. They had established a position, attempted to signal for help, and hunkered down, hoping to endure until rescue arrived or conditions improved. However, the mountain had one final, fatal blow to deliver. Expert analysis of the snowpack and weather patterns from the time of their disappearance indicated a severe meteorological event occurred shortly after the initial whiteout. The slope where the Sandovals sought refuge had cross-loaded again. This phenomenon, explained by Avalanche forecaster Akeka Nuns, occurs when powerful winds shift vast quantities of loose snow, rapidly building unstable slabs on leeward slopes. For the Sandovals, this meant that after their careful preparations and signaling attempt, another surge of snow, likely a localized avalanche or a massive drift, had overwhelmed their position, burying their improvised shelter and them along with it. The mountain, in its indifferent power, had sealed their fate, rendering their valiant efforts to signal and shelter ultimately futile. The light stick, a testament to their will to survive, had glowed unseen in the deepening snow, a silent witness to their final moments. The evidence meticulously gathered and analyzed over 7 years painted a clear, albeit tragic, picture of the Sandoval family's final hours. Facing the sudden and brutal onset of a whiteout, disoriented by a failing GPS, and isolated by Mount Hood's unforgiving terrain, Rosa, Eli, and Mateo had demonstrated remarkable resilience and ingenuity. Their decision to seek shelter in the Windscoop Cave, to stack their backpacks as a visible cairn, and to deploy a chemical light stick as a desperate signal toward the highway spoke volumes of their valiant and intelligent efforts to survive. They were not simply lost, they were actively fighting for their lives, employing every resource and strategic thought available to them. Despite their methodical preparations and courageous attempts at signaling, the mountain had delivered a final, overwhelming blow. The subsequent cross-loading of the slope, as explained by Akeka Nuns, buried their improvised shelter, rendering their efforts futile. It was an act of nature, indifferent and unstoppable, that ultimately sealed their fate. The Sandovals had done everything within their power, but the sheer force of the elements proved insurmountable. While the full recovery of their remains remained elusive, likely still entombed by the mountain's shifting snow and ice, the discovery of the stacked packs and the light stick provided a profound form of resolution. It was not the closure of a physical recovery, but the invaluable understanding of their final moments. The mystery of their disappearance was finally solved, replaced by a poignant narrative of survival, hope, and ultimate tragedy. For Dana Kroll, the SAR lead who had carried the burden of the unsolved case for years, the new evidence brought a bittersweet peace. It confirmed that no stone had been left unturned in the initial search, and that the family's fate was a consequence of nature's raw power, not a failure of rescue efforts. Ikeka Nuns, the Avi forecaster, found his scientific understanding of the mountain tragically validated by the family's desperate, yet ultimately doomed, attempt to outwit its forces. Even Big Walt, the ODOT plow driver who had witnessed countless storms, spoke of the mountain's humbling power, now with a new, somber perspective on the human struggle against it. The legacy of the Sandovals on Mo. Aunt Hood became a testament not to a simple disappearance, but to the indomitable human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. Their story, finally pieced together after 7 years, served as a stark reminder of nature's power and unpredictability, but also of the intelligence and courage that can emerge even in the most dire circumstances. The mountain had held its secret for a long time, but eventually it had offered a glimpse into the final, heroic efforts of a family, bringing a quiet, long-sought peace to a haunting mystery.